Montana, I think you're going to hear people say this nose did a lot more than we thought it would. It's going to change the car a lot more than we thought it was going to. So you can't make major changes to a race car. The big wing off and the four-on, the splitter off and the nose with the air, with the left on front on there now. It's got to balance. The balance of the car will be totally different.
I think Las Vegas will be our first real true measuring stick about the aero of this car with this nose. This place has so much grip. Phoenix is a lot more about mechanical grip because it is treated like a short track. You get to that fast mile-and-a-half racetrack where you're driving off in the corner at almost 200 miles an hour, that's when you'll find out, I think, exactly where the cars are at.
I don't think there's any question what these two guys think the hot tip. That's the pushing each other. You push me a while, I'll push you a while, because they apparently think that that's going to be a big advantage for them when they come back down here for the race. And it seems that they're working on stability of their cars to be able to tuck under each other like that. Look, there comes two more trying the same thing.
Because Truex and Rubin mixed it up a little bit, and those two Red Bull cars of Casey Kane and Brad Vickers, they stayed right together. Look how fast they caught them and how fast they drove by.
And you see how the I can't tell which number that is, the blue car back there, it's a Kane. His car was wiggling as it went down into the first turn. He's not doing that on purpose. That's the air off of the car in front, bumping his car around, and that's what upsets the car of Brian Vickers, is when that car behind you starts moving around like that, it moves the air around, and that's where we heard that Carl Edwards say his car was lying on the straightaway. That's where that comes from.
And just look at the gap that they have put over those two Michael Walker race cars. That's because they stayed together. They didn't dice it up.
Yeah, and that's four Toyotas. Yeah. So it's not like one brand's got an advantage over the other. That's just working together.
You know, Darryl, what I found interesting, I've mentioned several times that I sat down with Jamie McMurray during that lunch break and got a lot of good information. And he said that a year ago, they sat down on Friday afternoon and Saturday before the Daytona 500 and debated and deliberated where he wanted to be. Where did he want to ride around at the back? What did we want to do? And Jamie said he was very adamant in saying, I just think that the pack is going to spring out. I want to be at the front of this race at the end if my car's handling good, and indeed it was, and indeed he won the race. He said with what he's seeing right now, Darryl, that he feels like the Budweiser shootout, the Saturday night, the weekend before the 500, it'll be on Fox. The Gatorade Duel races on Thursday, which will be on Speed. He said it's going to be a huge test session for him to find out where do I want to be with my race car in those closing laps for the Daytona 500.
Now, if you think back to Talladega and what Kevin Harvick did to Jamie McMurray coming to the finish line, well, that finish line is in turn one. And so that makes from turn 4 down to the start-finish line there a long way. The race is on. Here, when you come off turn 4, unless you have got a really head of steam up, it's hard to get by a guy from turn 4 to the start-finish line. Here, the track's narrow, and you don't have a lot of room. And if you try something maybe like, remember Kyle Busch tried to block Tony Stewart? Well, it usually doesn't work out too well.
And to Jamie's point, to your point, Kevin Harvick had that move figured out on Friday in practice, coming through the trial, just enough, timed it perfect back to the finish line.
He just nipped him just enough to wiggle him a little bit, broke his momentum slightly, and took the win. And I remember talking about Kevin was working on that move on Friday. We watched him practice, and by golly, it paid off.
Hey, here's a nice tweet. Never mind that it's 16 degrees here in Nebraska. Hearing our friends at Speed means it's officially spring. Perfect. And poor Don in Tulsa, he's getting pounded by the snow.
Yeah, well, we're supposed to get snow in Nashville this afternoon. It started about 3 o'clock, maybe 3 inches again. So, got out of there in the nick of time.
Good planning.
All I know is it's in the low 70s here.
It's supposed to drop a little bit tonight and even a little more the next night, but right now she's in the 70s, just perfect.
And people wonder why we always start the season here in Daytona.
Makes sense. You know, going back, talking about those self-ending fuel cans, you know, the big story at the end of last year was things that were going on pit road with the Hendrick Motorsports team. Of course, we know in the middle of the race at Texas when the 2014 had its problems that Chad Canal, Steve Letarte put their heads together, moved the 24 pit crew over there. The big thing that self-ending fuel can was eliminating the catch can man is going to do. It's going to change the way these guys approach the pit stop. Not because they're minus the catch can man. You just think back to all the pit stops that you've watched over the years. The catch can weekend, man, is the guy making the most adjustments on that race car. So now it's going to take, be it probably the tire carrier, which indeed is going to make these guys really have to work on pit stop.
And we won't see the catch can hanging on the rear spoiler. Like
as they drive off.
I think it was Phoenix. Jason Kane, he goes down pit road and his catch can is...
No, it ain't the fuel can.
That's what it is. Hanging on his rear blade.
Speaking of the schedule, you know, we used to come down here and then go to Rockingham, be cold.
Oh, yeah.
Or Richmond, be cold. Now we're going to Phoenix.
How about that? It's a lot better than Vegas. Yeah. Yeah, I remember Rockingham. Oh, my gosh. In the garage with the tarp pulled down to keep the wind from blowing on. Salamanders, those stinking salamanders. You'd go home at night and you didn't know what to do. You smelled like rear end grease, soot. Reminded me of the farmer's market. You didn't want to ride home with anybody. And I ride home with you? No. Larry, I know this little group right here is just kind of working on this two-car thing, passing each other and seeing how it's working, but I just don't feel good about getting a bunch of cars out there and seeing this kind of movement, this kind of pushing going on.
Probably why we don't see. Yeah, I was gonna say, you're not wrong.
These guys are using up a lot of racetrack doing what they're doing.
There was a bunch of guys standing on top of the transporters in the garage that agree with you.
Well, I'd be like I asked Buddy Baker one time and said, you know, what do you think? Can you do that? And he said, yeah, you can do that. And so I went out and I was like run a corner wide open and I about crashed on and killed myself. I said, man, I thought you said you could do that. He said, no, I said, you could do that.
Hey, Buddy told a great story. I interviewed him the other day, Darryl, for NASCAR Race Hub. And when he won his very first Daytona 500, you know, back then you do the victory lane and you come up and answer the questions and then go to the, I guess, the Unical suite they had. Well, he said he got back to the hotel here in Daytona. You know, this was before everybody got jets. He said he was laying there in bed like a flounder, flipping around. He says, I'm going to drive back to Charlotte. I can't sleep. So he said it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And he's just hauling the mail up Interstate 95 near Savannah. And a trooper pulls him over. He goes, the trooper walks up the window and says, Buddy Baker, I'm so happy you won the Daytona 500. I'm such a big fan. Buddy said, oh, thank you, brother. He said, listen, what can you do about that ticket? He said, oh, buddy, you know what? You've had so much bad luck in your career. Today's one of those days. He said, if I let you go, I got to let the next guy go. He could just drove up the interstate 95 by himself, trophy in the front seat.
And then added a speeding ticket.
And added a speeding ticket to his trophy.
I just don't see Baker being calm without being pulled over.
No.
I kind of more like see him say, why are you pulling me over at 2 o'clock in the morning? But I love the story Darryl tells about him. You know, Martinsville definitely was tough on Buddy.
Yeah.
But there's so much patience and finesse. And Darryl said, I talked to him one time. He said, hell, I looked up there on the pace lap. He was shaking his fist out the window at somebody.